Let me show you another crazy tool you may have never seen before. And now this is the Sawsquatch, which is a 16-inch worm drive carpentry chainsaw by SkilSaw. Now for those of you that have been following me a while, you know that I've got the Prezi beam cutter mounted to a 7 1/4 inch Makita saw. And I've used this a lot for cutting beams and sizing big material and stuff like that. And it served me very well, I like it. But I think that there's some significant design advantages to what SkilSaw has done with this one, which is why I wanted to get it. And I'll tell you why. And the very first thing to point out is that when I'm using this one, it doesn't have any way of lubricating the blade and keeping it cool. So I always carry around WD-40, and whenever I'm making cuts, I will spray the blade in advance of making the cuts, and that does the job. But what SkilSaw has done is, like a chainsaw, they've put a reservoir to put bar chain oil inside the reservoir so you don't have to do that. Okay, now the second thing that impresses me about the SkilSaw over the Prezi is how you adjust the chain. So if you want to adjust the chain on the Prezi, you have to grab a half-inch tool. You'll loosen off this bolt right here. Now normally you wouldn't take that bolt all the way out, but I want to show you something. Here on the bar you can see those two holes, which normally on the chainsaw will have a little adjustment piece right there, and then you would be able to screw or loosen something to move that back and forth. With this, it doesn't have it at all. So really all you do is loosen off that bolt, and then you pull down on the bar to tighten the chain, and then tighten the bolt back up. And that works, and you can do that, and I've used this saw a lot, but SkilSaw's design I think is significantly better. And first off, what they've done is they've made it toolless, so you don't have to go grab any tools. They've made it so that you can loosen this part off just with this finger knob right here. And again, you wouldn't normally have to take this all the way completely off, but I want to show you inside. So if I open that up, now on the inside you do see where those two holes are, and like a chainsaw, they have that knob there that when you adjust the adjustment knob, it will pull the bar up and down so you can adjust it however you want. And what they've done is put the adjustment knob right up on top here. So you can take this off without any tools, and then you adjust this back and forth, and that moves the bar up and down so you can tighten your chain. And then once you've got it set, you'll just tighten this back down with your fingers, and you're ready to go. Okay, and next up will be the chain. On the Prezi, you have kind of a traditional chain where you get one tooth for every second link. And what SkilSaw has done is they've gone with a full house chain, which means you have a tooth on every link as opposed to one on every other one. So similar to saw blade, when you have a lower number of tooth, you're getting a faster but not as clean cut. And with a higher number of teeth, you're getting a bit slower of a cut, but a much cleaner cut. And so if getting nice clean cuts is the name of the game, then this is the one you want to go with. And speaking of clean cuts, something else that SkilSaw has done is under on the bottom side here, they have an adjustable splinter guard. So kind of like when you have a track saw and the track sits down on the top of the wood, and then when your saw is going through and cutting the wood is held down by the bottom of the track, and so you get way less splintering and a much cleaner cut. So you can take this splinter guard, move it up against the chain, and then when you're cutting and the chain is pulling through, this will stop some of the splintering that you're going to get that you would normally get with one like this where there is no splinter guard. And that's a pretty cool innovation. And one last difference you can see here, this has kind of a closed house design. So you have this unit in behind here that runs behind your blade. It keeps the blade tracking straight, but also holds the log open so that it doesn't pinch against your blade. And what they've done here is make it all housed in so that it can't move at all. This one can move independent of the blade. It hasn't really caused many problems for me at all, but this obviously makes it a little bit stronger. Okay, and the rest of the things that I want to show you that I think are cool about the purpose-built SkilSaw design that they've got here have more to do with the saw. And with the Prezi cutter, you get the chainsaw and it attaches to whatever saw you decide to put it on. So I can't make a comparison between Prezi and some of the things that are going on here because it depends what saw you decide to use, whether it's worm drive or not, or rear handle or not, or battery powered or not. And so I'll put this one away. Okay, so as you can see, it says right here it's a 16-inch blade, but that's 16 inches to the bottom that's inside the housing, so you get about 14 1/4 inches of total cut, which is usually way more than I ever need. I use these saws predominantly for cutting down big beams and stuff like that, where I can cut it in one pass, instead of having to cut with a circular saw and then roll the log over and over and over again, and then finish off with a handsaw depending on how big it is. So a nice one-cut pass on these is awesome. You can also take this, and just like a circular saw, you can change the bevel or the angle here all the way up to 60 degrees if you want to make angle cuts. And then right here, this will let you lift the saw up and down to change the angle. So if you're all the way down at the bottom, you're cutting at 90 degrees, and the whole blade engages the wood at once. But if you lift it and lock it in place, you've got about a 5-degree offset. And so now when you go to cut into a line, you can start at the top and work your way through. And I haven't used it yet, but my suspicion is that you're going to get a straighter cut. If you try and have the whole blade try and engage the log at once, and that chain is rubbing against it, it may just find the path that it wants to cut, and it might not end up quite as perfect. But if you cut like this and you see the line at the top and you start cutting into it, then if you're cutting a perfect line at the top and slowly the rest of the blade is coming engaging with it, I think you're going to get a a straighter line. At least that's my thesis for now. Up top here, you can see there's a dust board. That's either for directing where the dust is gonna go, so it's out of your face, or I'm gonna hook up a vacuum to it because I'm cutting inside and wanna cut down on some of the dust. Obviously, there's gonna be some dust on the bottom, but this will suck up a lot of it. Now, SkilSaw, they were the original guys that made the worm drive saw, and you do have the TW55 motor. That's the same one they have on their big 16¼ inch saw, which I also have an order and I do want, but they're out of stock right now. And I do like with the worm drive saw where you kind of have this rear handle where you can push through, and you've got the other handle up on front here, which I don't have on the Prazzi. You're kind of holding on where you can, and my hand was sort of cocked weird where you had to kind of push in the top. Like I say, it works. I just think this is a superior design. Now, this also has a brake on the motor. So you fire it up and it goes, and it stops real quick. Now, you've listened to me talk about this entire thing, and all you really wanted to see was me cut some wood. So let's cut some wood. Okay, so I'm impressed. It's powerful, it's smooth, it's well balanced, makes nice clean cuts, makes real nice square cuts. And I'm impressed with this chain. Like, usually after I go over it with the Prazzi or another chainsaw, it's still pretty rough, and so I'll end up cutting that somehow or sanding it. But this is the smoothest I've ever seen a chainsaw cut, which probably has a lot to do with that full house chain that they've got on here. So all in all, a very well-built, powerful, purpose-built carpentry chainsaw with the auto lube, the toolless chain adjustment and everything. And even while I was cutting, I was thinking if I put this back to 90 degrees on some of these big beams that I didn't want to take over to my radial arm saw, I could even cut in some tenons and things like that with it. I wouldn't cut the exact line, I'd still come chisel it afterwards, but instead of hand sawing it, this was so precise and well balanced, I'd go ahead and set that at 90 and cut out some notches and cut out tenons and things like that. I'm really impressed. That's a cool saw. And it even comes with this cool carrying rack where you can buckle it down and keep it nice and safe. It's a very cool and useful saw that I'm excited to add to my shop.